Welcome, fellow bookworms, to Tibra's Den. My name is Whitney, and today I have my June wrap-up. I was completely delusional in June. May wasn't a great reading month for me, so I had a lot of books that I rolled over from May. I added on a ton of extras. My original TBR was only 9 books, which was very doable, but I added on extras. I had rollovers. I did end up reading 14 books, which I am very happy about. I didn't rush anything. A lot of books I took my time with. So you definitely could have read more, but I've just been kind of going with the flow as far as my reading. So I am happy with what I got read, but there's still a lot of books that I need to get to from May and now June. So I'll be rolling those over into July. And so there was only like a handful of books that I was like, no, you know what? I'm not going to worry about them. So I don't know. I need a month where I can just play catch up. So I'm going to try to do that in August, but I still want to play my game. And so we're just going to have to see how it goes. Generally in September, I don't play my game or anything. I choose my reads, but I obviously want to choose books that I'm really excited for, not necessarily use that as my catch-up month because September is my birthday month. So we'll just have to see going forward, but we'll go ahead and get into it. So if you're new here, the way I do my wrap-ups, I start with my stats. Then I work my way from the books I didn't get to and I'm not rolling over to books I'm rolling over, partial reads, and then I work my way from the bottom up to my favorite read of the month. And I also have a top 3 that doesn't necessarily correspond with star rating. It's more just the books that really stood out are really going to stick with me, even if they weren't like a 5-star read, if that makes sense. Star ratings is more about my enjoyment of the book, where the top 3 is more what really stuck with me over the month. So let's go ahead and get into the stats. So I did read 14 books, like I said. Page count was 5,280. I had 11 physical books, 1 digital, and 2 audiobooks. My audio hours were 48 hours and 2 minutes. I had 10 fiction, 4 nonfiction. I did not have any rereads this month. My top moods were emotional, reflective, and then tense and funny were tied, which I find that kind of silly because, they're kind of opposites there. So as far as my top genres, again, these overlap, so some books fit in multiple spaces. So if there's more genres than the books, that's why. But there were 6 romance, 3 contemporary, 3 thriller, 2 fantasy, 2 literary, 2 mystery, 2 reference, 1 young adult, 1 science fiction, 1 science, 1 magical realism, 1 classics, 1 nature, 1 history, 1 historical, 1 erotica, and 1 crime. And I know like the historical, like Storygraph separates those. And it's just basically like one's, about like actual history and one's just set like in a historical time period is kind of what I can figure out. So there is that. And I did not have, let's see here. Well, I'll get into that in a second. So let's go ahead and start with the books that I am not going to be rolling over. There is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of those. One of them was a rollover from May. It's a Goodreads giveaway. So I try to get my Goodreads giveaway if I win them. I try to get them read sooner rather than later because that's kind of the spirit of Goodreads giveaway. They're giving away these books so you can read and review them. But I'm not able to get to it. My stack's getting crazy. And so I'm going to try to get it on in August. And if I can't get it on in August, I'm going to plan on reading it for my birthday month because it is a book I'm very excited about. But let's go ahead and start at the bottom. The first book I'm not going to be rolling over. This was for my genre-thon, which genre-thon is my readathon. And we focus on a different genre or genre adjacent prompt. This year is a little bit more out there, I would say. So the prompts were a book with slavery, or about slavery, or an LGBTQIA plus book. And I did have 2 books. I didn't get to either of them, but I did read another book that actually worked for Genreathon, so I'm not too stressed. But the book I'm not going to be rolling over is I Thought My Soul Would Rise and Fly, The Diary of Patsy, a Free Girl, Mars Bluff, South Carolina, 1865. It's one of the Dear America books. I've been collecting these as I come across them because I really enjoyed them growing up. And this is by Joy Hansen. And so, yeah, I ended up not getting to this, and I'm not going to roll it over. I'm not that concerned about it. So there is that one. The next one was for my game. I I've pulled this prompt so many times and I've never fulfilled it. I don't know what it is, why I don't fulfill it, but it's Little Red Riding Hood and it's red cover. So this will go back in the honey jar prompt, and the book I chose for that was the first book in the Cherub series, which was Mission 1, The Recruit by Robert Muchamore. I found this, like, the first 5 books in the series at the thrift store, 5 or 6, I can't remember now, at the thrift store, and I didn't want to pass it up. And so this one is not a high priority. I am interested in reading it at some point, but it's not typically my type of book. But I am interested in giving them a try, but that will go back on my shelves for now. Then we had another game prompt, and this was a bookworm, and it was manga or graphic novel. So again, that will go back in. And I was going to read the next book I needed to of The Spy Family by Tatsuya Endo. This is volume 3. Really, really cute manga series. I've only read the first 2, but I really enjoyed them. This series is one, like, I'll get to it when I get to it. I'm not that fussed about it. And so this will go back on the shelves for now. Then let's see here. Then we had another game one, and this was also the pick for Autism Reads, which is put on by Kristen and an autistic reader. I'll link Christine's channel down below, of course. And I have not been doing good this year on reading these books. And so I thought this one I would for sure get to because it worked for a game prompt, and that was Lilo and Stitch, and it was neurodiverse rep. And so that, again, we'll be going back in the honey jar prompt. And this book was The Many Mysteries of the Finkel Family by Srah Kapit. And so, yeah, unfortunately I won't get to this. I am very, very interested in this. I'm collecting a stack of these books by autistic authors, because that's Autism Reads. It's authors that are confirmed to be autistic. And the way Christine does it is she does a adult, young adult, and then middle grade, and it just kind of loops back around. This was the middle grade choice. So while I'm still very interested in it, I just have way too many books, and so this one's kind of going by the wayside. I really like that Christine does this, but I've been having a hard time keeping up this year. And I always drop off, like, at the end of the year, but this year, like, I haven't done well at all. And then the last one is the Goodreads giveaway that I rolled over from May, and like I said, I am going to try to get it on the upcoming TBR, so either August or September, and that's The Antidote by Karen Russell. I'm very, very interested in this one. Like, when I saw I won this one, because normally the ones I win, they're not typically books I would necessarily go out and buy, but I'm interested in trying. This is a book I would have bought if I came across it. And so I was very happy that I won this. I love the cover. But unfortunately, I'm not getting to it, and instead of continuing to roll over, I'll just work to put it on a future TBR. So those are the books that I am not going to be rolling over. Then we have a stack of books that I am going to be rolling over. Many of these are rollovers from May, because I didn't get to them in May. A lot of these are either from my priority reads list or my series pool, and so they are high priority. This first one was actually for my gameplay in May. I had pulled a book talk pick, which is a bookworm, for that game, and I went with Nightbane by Alex Astor. This is the second book from the Lightlark series. and I got this for Christmas, so it is a high priority because I like to read books that are gifted to me as well, sooner rather than later. And so I really enjoyed the first one. Even though I didn't think the writing was all that great, I had a great time with the story itself, and I'm very interested in reading this. And since it is a Christmas gift, this is another one that if I can get it either on my August or September TBR, well, September I'm choosing, but if I could get it on my August TBR, I'm not necessarily going to prioritize it in July, because, again, too many books. So we'll just have to see on this one what happens. So there is that one. Then we had one from my May game as well, and this is from my priority reads list, and we had gotten Rumpelstiltskin, which is a fairy tale retelling, and that was In the Lives of Puppets by T.J. Klune, because I believe it's inspired by or based on Pinocchio, is what I've heard. And it is from my priority list. This one's a little bit lower because I think I would enjoy it more like in autumn season, but I do still really want to get to it. I want to get my priority books checked off. So this one I am going to be rolling over, but I am going to be working to see if I could get it on a later TBR as well, which we'll see what happens there. This one was for June's game, and it was just a free choice, because if I land on the purple squares this year, it's a completely free choice. I don't have to pull a honey jar prompt or anything, and this was also the other book I chose for Genre-a-thon, but I think I'm going to read this on the 4th of July, over the 4th of July weekend, which when you're seeing this has passed, but for me it's upcoming, and so I'm planning on reading Red, White, and Royal Blue by Casey McQuiston, and yeah, I'm excited to get to this one. Will definitely be read because I just think it'll be fun to read over the 4th, so that one is gonna get read. Then we have another priority read, and this was another one that was a rollover from May, and it was Owl I Can Read ABC book, which we got the letter L, and so I went with The London Seance Society by Sarah Penner. I half enjoyed The Lost Apothecary. I love the historical part of that book. Wasn't a big fan of like the present day timeline, but I'm very interested in reading this, and then I did end up getting the Amalfi Curse from Pango. So I was going to wait until after I read this, since I've only read one other book by her and I was kind of mixed on it. But I just think I'm really going to love that one. So I did get it from Pango, but I need to read this one. It's on my priority list and I want to read it before I get to the Amalfi Curse. And I would like to get to the Amalfi Curse in September for my birthday. So that one is a higher priority, as is this one, because this will wrap up a series. It was a series pull. I also used it as a free choice in my game in May. And that was The Golden Enclaves by Naomi Novik. This is the last book in the Skullmance series, which is a priority series for me. Like I said, it will wrap up the series, and so this is high priority. I am planning on for sure getting to this in July. So there's that. The next one was for my June game, and it was Wrecked and Stranded. I did not get to this, but this one works for I participate in Kim from Expedition Through Pages, the TBR Trail the Quest game. I'm on Team Azray, and this works for one of our prompts, which was we needed UFOs, alien, or space travel. So I'm going to be reading Barbarian's Heart by Ruby Dixon. This is the 9th book in the Ice Planet Barbarian series, and obviously aliens, and they did space travel to get to this planet originally in the series. And so, yeah, I'm excited to read that. They're always just light and fun, and so that for sure will get read. And so we got 2 books that aren't as high priorities for that I'm for sure planning, and then these next 2 as well. This first one was a rollover from May. It was for One Unusable Disc, and it is for my Adventures in Aldea from May, which was to read a dystopian, and so that is Station 11 by Emily John St. John Mandel. And so this is a very high priority as well. This next one was for June, and it was a free choice for my game. And it's also for Adventures in Aldea. This one was, I think, to read a mystery, to like solve traps, to read a mystery or whatnot. And so I wanted to read How to Solve Your Own Murder by Kristen Perrin. Since this is for Aldea, this is another high priority. So I will be rolling that one over too. A lot of rollovers. So yeah, I think in Nightbane and in the Lives of Puppets, I might not roll over this month, but they will go on future TBRs. So those are all the ones I did not get to at all. I did have 4 partial reads. The first 2 go together. I decided to tandem read. This was a series pull, and I decided to tandem read Empire of Storms and Tower of Dawn. These are by Sarah J. Maas, and this is books 5 and 6, I want to say, of the series, but 6 and 7 for me because I did read the Assassin's Blade first, and I made good progress. Like, these ones, I have less than 200 pages left in both of these. I think I'm on page 506 on this one and 465 on this one. Yeah. So 465 is where I'm at on this one, and 506 on this one. I'm using what is it? I'll leave the PDF to the tandem read checklist I'm using for this. It's very handy. Like, I found some other lists, but they were just lists. This one actually, has like little check boxes and everything like that. So these ones I will obviously be rolling over and finishing up in July. Said less than 200 pages on both of these. So I've been really enjoying my time with the series. I'm really enjoying just taking my time instead of rushing through it, reading, a few chapters, each night and such, and the way it's broken down is really handy to do that as well. So I've been having a great time with this, and then I'm looking forward to completing this so I can jump into the last book, Kingdom of Ash, hopefully in August, and I might carry that over into September as well. So those ones are going to continue to be read. I'm running out of space here. The stack's getting higher. The next 2 they were my series pool. But I read the first one. I did read the first one. I'm partway through the second one, and I didn't touch the third one because I wanted to binge read this series. I didn't want it to be one of the series I drag on. And so I do plan on finishing this up within this first week because they're super easy. They're YA, the font is huge. It's not that complicated. So the second book is Devoted, and the third book is True, and these are by Hilary Duff. And so I read, let's see, where am I at on Devoted? I think 220 pages. Yeah, I'm at 220 out of 350. So this one I should be able to wrap up probably tonight, honestly. And then I'm looking forward to jumping into True. Like I said, this was a series I just wanted to binge. But other reads kind of took over. But I am actually enjoying it. The writing is not good at all, but I am enjoying it, and I'll talk a little bit more about it when I get to the book I actually read from this series, Elixir. So I'll talk about that here shortly. Then the last book that I partially read, and I'm reading this with my husband, this is the newest Nora Roberts release, and that is Hidden Nature by Nora Roberts. I already said the author. And so we're closing in on 2/3 done of this book. Again, we have less than 200 pages left to go. We're at 256, and I think it's 430 pages or something like that, 35. And so, yeah, this is the newest Nora Roberts book, and my husband and I have been reading it. I've been kind of a little salty because this is my favorite author. I have her entire collection of books, and the newer ones just haven't been hitting like they should. This one I'm actually enjoying. You basically have our main character and she gets shot. She's a police officer, but she doesn't even get shot on the job. Her and her partner are headed back, and they stop at a gas station and she's gonna go use the bathroom and get snacks while he gasses up, and it happens to be a robbery in place. And before she can react, the robber shoots her. So she's healing from that. And then there's these um, disappearances around her area. And so while she's recovering, she starts kind of looking into that. And so, yeah, I'm actually really enjoying this so far. And I'm excited to finish this up with my husband. But obviously, when we read this, it's at night. We read a couple chapters at bed, and it just depends on how late we get to bed and all of that. So, but I am looking forward to finishing this one up. So those are all my ones I didn't get to, rollovers, partial reads, and all that. I have a lot rolling over into July. It's gonna be, I don't foresee myself being able to read all the books I want to get to in July. So now we're gonna go ahead and get to the books I did read and finish and rated. So I did not have any 1-star reads, which for my purposes, 1 stars are DNFs. I also did not have any 2-star reads, which is fantastic. So all my reads were 3 stars and above. And so 3 stars, I ended up having 6 3 stars. The first one was an extra book. I found it, I think, at a thrift store, I want to say. And I was just kind of intrigued by it, and so I ended up picking it up right away. And that is Cat versus Cat, Keeping Peace When You Have More Than One Cat. Pam Johnson Bennett is the author. She's a feline behaviorist. It is damaged, but it's just the back cover and like the index, a couple pages of the index that's damaged. And so I thought I'd give it a try. I am going to unhaul it though. So it was more, I think if you're a new cat owner, you could get more out of this than I did. But it was a lot about helping your cat adjust and such. And yeah, it talked a little bit about the inter-cat relationships in a household, and introducing, the cat to your other cats or whatnot, or your dogs. But really, I was thinking it was going to be more focused on cat versus cat, like the title, and it really wasn't. It was more about, the environment and like more introducing your cat to your house and setting your cat up for success. And also I find this like, because I used to do dog training as well. I worked in a vet clinic, but I did dog training on the side, and I found that kind of in the behavior world, not always realistic. And one thing I learned working with many different people and their dogs is like, yeah, in a perfect world, everybody would be able to do this, this, and this, but it's not a perfect world. And so you kind of have to work with what you got. And she was very kind of like, well, you need to do this and this and this, not being very realistic to different people's situations. And like, she's like, everything I'm doing with my litter boxes is apparently wrong. I have them in the wrong location. They shouldn't be covered, which I have. My boxes are covered. We have dogs. Like, yes, it's blocked off, but when they walk past, if they're not covered, they'll try to snack and such. Because we have it in our mud room, and that's where the dogs go outside to their dog yard. So anyway, it was just like, you kind of work with, I have them next to the washer and dryer. She's like, you can't have them there. And just kind of the way she was like, you're for sure going to have problems if you do this thing. And I'm like, like, yes, ideally, but you kind of work with what you got. And so I didn't like kind of that preachy, like, it rubbed me the wrong way a little bit. And like I said, it wasn't really about the the inter-cat relationship. It was more about the environment and introducing the cat and such. And I wanted more because Fradaline, her name's Adeline, we call her Fradaline. Anyway, the boys tend to pick on her a little bit. And so I was like, well, maybe there's something in here. I think we're doing everything that we can. But maybe there's something. And there really wasn't. I did, learn a little bit more about like the dominant cat and like Sherlock. He's the dominant cat of the house, and like how they'll be more nonchalant, which he definitely does that. Like he acts like nothing phases him. If something ruffles him, he just kind of grooms himself, flops down and grooms himself. Like he doesn't like react, and so yeah, there was a little bit here and there. And I think I said, like I said, if you were new to animals, which I'm not, like I've worked with animals my whole working career, so, I started with horses at like 14, and then, my first job was in the Humane Society, and just from there working with animals, cats and dogs mostly. So yeah, I have more than the general knowledge, and so I don't think I got a lot out of this is my point. So it's kind of bottom of the barrel, 3 stars, and like I said, I will be unhauling this. Probably since it is damaged, I'll probably put it in a little free library. But there is that one. Next was an extra one because I did an Octopus reading vlog. I'll leave that link down below if you haven't seen it yet. I had a lot of fun. I read 4 different books and I had fun with all of them. This one was Weird is Beautiful, The Wisdom of Octopuses. This is by Liz Marvin. I think originally when I was doing my vlog I said Liv. No. I'm getting myself all confused because she doesn't have the title. Yeah, Liz Marvin. I think I said Liv or initially, but it's Liz Marvin. But it's, on the, what is that page called? I don't know. My brain is not working apparently, but it's there. And then the acknowledgements, it says Liz Marvin is not an octopus. But the octopuses would like to thank her for all her help in transcribing their wisdom. And so this has a little bit of fun facts about octopuses. It has like these little snippets of octopus wisdom. So, she gives you kind of a fact about them and then how we can kind of apply that to our living. This one is a little bit lower. I love, 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 love the artwork, but some of the humor just wasn't for me. I'm more like the puns and such. They were cute. They were fine. And I get that makes it a little bit more fun for the reader. But I'm here for the facts. I wanted more octopus facts. It did get a little repetitive at time. Like, okay, we got right away that octopuses are really good at squeezing into small things. But that came up multiple times throughout the book. And there was like, she did, I just don't find this funny. So, and I know like other people have done it, but like, she took popular books and songs and such and changed it to like an octopus theme. So like Harry Potter and the something or other, but it was octopus theme. And so just that's, not quite my thing. And like, I just found it kind of silly. It has like little quotes from famous people, like It's Weird Not to Be Weird by John Lennon. There was a little quiz, which was fun, a little like math problem. So it was cute and it was fun, but just kind of the humor and such, like I wanted more straight fun facts. And not kind of the silliness of it, with different book names, like, like she's translating for the octopus or whatever. Like the octopus is not talking to us. Like I want the facts, and so that's why this is a little lower, but I love the artwork. I will be keeping this. I think it's so much fun. And yeah, I enjoyed it, but it just wasn't, the humor wasn't for me. So there's that one. The next one was an extra book for Kim's game. It was like a randomized a book, like a shelf and a book. And so I did that, and this is what came up, and this is Ninja the Shadow Warrior by Joel Levy. So this, again, love, love, love the art. And I found it actually pretty interesting. It talks about like the history of the ninja. And then like the part I really enjoyed was like ninja in a historical context versus a cultural context. I found that really interesting. I really am glad I had read Shogun by James Clavell because I had more knowledge of like the samurai and such. And so I enjoyed that, and like ninjas are kind of like the anti-samurai. Samurai are very like tradition, like you do things a certain way, where ninja would use more nefarious means to achieve their goal and such. The first part of it is very dry. It's kind of just listing, like different dates, which history was always hard for me because I'm not good with dates. And so I didn't enjoy the first part of this book. I enjoyed the second when he was kind of talking about like ninja historically versus culturally and like some actual ninjas. It was pretty simplified, but I think for the average person that works really well. And like me, I'm not a ninja connoisseur, but if you had knowledge about ninjas and such, I don't think you would necessarily enjoy it because it is pretty simple. It doesn't go into a lot of depth. But the first half felt a little dry. It was kind of sloggy. But I really enjoyed the second half. And I love the artwork. So that's why that got 3 stars from me. Then we had an audiobook. And this one I just added on because I needed something to clean to. And I ended up reading or listening to Shipwrecked by Olivia Dade. This one, I like the characters. I don't think I like the plus size rep. I read some other plus romances with plus size rep in them, but one of my problem with those ones was, yeah, you had the plus size female main character, but the guy was super fit and super hot. Which I love that, I love that representation. Like, you could be plus size and, get a 10 or whatever, whatever. Because, most of the time, like, there's that thing where, like, if you're hot, you're not going to date somebody who's not or whatever. And so I like that. But even the women, like, yes, they were plus size, but they were extra beautiful and such. Where in this case, you have 2 plus size main characters. So I really like that rep, and I like how they did that. And they're in Hollywood, so they're actors and whatnot. And I like kind of that representation. And there is this part where, like, the showrunners that they're on is like, you guys, your characters are in the winter, they're starving, like, you need to starve yourselves and lose a bunch of weight. And our female main character is from Sweden. She's like, no, I'm not doing that. So basically, the premise is you have our main characters, Peter and Maria, or Marie. Maria? I can't remember. Marie or Maria. But you have our main characters, and they end up actually meeting in, like, they're in a sauna, and they end up having a one-night stand. And she leaves. Like, she doesn't want any connections or anything like that. So she just bounces out while he's sleeping. Well, he has some past relationship trauma, so that kind of, like, really upsets him, even though, like, it was a one-night stand. Like, she doesn't owe you anything. But so they end up both auditioning for the show and get cast for, the respective characters, and their characters are shipwrecked on this island, and so they spend like 6 years filming on this island on location. And during that time, like, he wants to be very successful in Hollywood. Like, he's very concerned. He's constantly worrying where, his next job's going to come from, like the stability of a paycheck and such. And he has some trauma because of his dad and, like, a past relationship around that. And then in her case, she's from Sweden, and she's actually like a theater star there. But she kind of goes to Hollywood on a whim, and then she gets cast in this part. And so you have them, and he's like, I don't want to jeopardize our working relationship. So, yes, I'm attracted to you, but not happening. And then the relationships doesn't start till later in the book. So you have like, yeah, it starts off with them together, but then you have like 6 years where they're not, and that's the first half of this book. And I just, the layout of it and the pacing of it just did not work for me. Because you have 6 years, and yeah, you're getting these little moments with them, and a little bit of tension and such, which I like slow burn. Like, I don't have a problem, but like, you didn't get enough to really get invested in the characters. I liked the characters. I actually really enjoyed them, but I just didn't get enough. And then you get to the second half of the book and the show's wrapping up, and so they can finally be together. But she's still doing like flashbacks to the time before. I'm like, you spent half the book during those 6 years. You could have included these parts then. And I get it's showing again more of that tension and such, but it's like, include that when you were there. Like, I don't need the flashbacks when you already spent so much time in that first 6 years where they're not even, they just have a friendly working relationship. Like, they're friends, they have a professional working relationship, but that's all it is. Like, include those little moments during that time. You already spent so much time on it. I don't need the flashbacks. So that was a little bit frustrating for me. And then the conflict, it made sense. Marie has trauma as well. She is adopted, and so her childhood and such, she has trauma from that. And she really needs her person to be with her. And so there's conflict there because they're actors and then they gotta go film on location and such. And so that's the crux of the conflict. And it made sense for the characters. The conflict did make sense. Just something about the execution just really rubbed me the wrong way. But the way it resolved really worked for me. So it's like, okay, I did like, it made sense for the characters. I did like how it resolved, but just something in the execution just really irked me. And I was like, come on, like, seriously. And so yeah, there was just the pacing in the first half and not getting, it's a romance. I want the romance, you know? You could have wrapped up those 6 years a lot quicker than what happened. Because to me, the story started midway, and that's when you get the story, but you didn't get as much time with them in the actual relationship. And so when the conflict came, I wasn't as invested. I just wasn't invested in it. So that's kind of where it fell short for me. But I had a good time. I like the characters. I like, the setting. Initially when they're kind of on the island, but yeah, it was fine. It was fine. The next one was an extra book again for Kim's game. We needed a book that was over 700 pages, and so I did listen to this on audio, but I do happen to have it as a physical book as well. But I listened to it, and that's Anna Karenina by Leo Tolstoy. Which is a classic I have been wanting to read, so I was very happy to finally get to this chunker. It's like 817 pages, the copy I have, but like I said, I did listen to it. This one, I don't know what I thought it was about. I thought it was like a romance or whatever. It's basically about adultery and like a soap opera. Like, I'm not even kidding you. Like, everybody, the relationships are so dramatic. Like, Anna Karenina, I do not like. She is such a hateful main character. And oh, it's so frustrating. So it starts off, and you have Anna Karenina's brother is cheating on the person he's married to, who is like a princess or something. And so you're following them initially, and then you also have Anna Karenina and her husband and the guy she's having an affair with. And then you also have Kitty and what the frick is his name? The guy Kitty's with. I'm like totally drawing a blank on his name right now. Levin. That's who it is. And so they're all kind of tied together in different ways and whatnot. And I liked Levin when it was Levin's point of view, and I also don't understand. Anna Karenina felt very much like a side character. Levin seemed to be the main character of the book. So I'm like, why is he even called Anna Karenina when Levin's like the main character? And I really enjoyed Levin's point of view because you have like the conversations between peasantry and landowners and such. And he's working the land and he's very concerned about that and such. I loved Levin's point of view. And he wants to court Kitty. The guy that Anna ends up having an affair with is also kind of courting Kitty, but he doesn't want marriage. Like, he just wants to have fun, and Kitty doesn't realize that. So she kind of turns down Levin, and then the other guy, like, has no interest and ends up hooking up with Anna anyway. So you have a lot of adultery and such. And I really enjoyed Levin and Kitty at first, but, like, their conflict, when they had conflict, it made sense. Like, she's young, like, she doesn't know she has two guys courting her. Like, she doesn't know, and she's kind of back and forth about what she wants and whatnot. And then when they get together, like, when they're first married, like, those conflicts and such, then the author decides to do with them what he did with everybody else and just create unnecessary drama. And, like, he goes and he ends up going because he's friends with Anna's brother, and so then he ends up going to the house and Anna's there and she's like turning on the charm and such, and he's drunk and like, oh, like, and then Kitty gets all jealous, like, you want her, whatever, and it's just like, come on, like, that was completely unnecessary. Like, you had a solid couple there that I could root for and you're creating unnecessary drama. Anna was hateful. Her husband the one she cheats on, like, I felt for the guy. Like, some of the things is like, yeah, it's spiteful, but like, dude, like, go for it, because you gave her all the chances. Like, you knew and you told her, like, I, like, whatever you're doing, like, just be mindful, there are eyes on you and us. And she's still just like, I can't keep it in her pants. Like, I know that doesn't apply to girls, but I'm like, come on. Like, you gotta be kidding me. And yeah, and then he gets hateful because, but my thing with him was he decides because his wife is a cheating, dishonest, not nice person, that her son is no longer her son, but then he decides to weaponize him and like, you can't have your son. Like, you don't even love him. Like, you're blaming him for his mother's faults. Like, he's your son too. And so that pissed me off. And then the crux of it, like, this is probably spoiler, but the crux of it, she ends up having a baby with the other guy. And he ends up he loves that little girl. And I'm like, you just owned your own son because of his mother's issues, but then you're okay and you love the little girl she has with the other guy? Like, you gotta be freaking kidding me. So that was frustrating. And then the guy who led Kitty on and then is with her, and like, I think they do end up getting married. I can't remember now. But anyway, like, he should not be in a serious relationship. Like, and there's just a lot of drama there, and it's just so frustrating. And there is a lot of, like, gender expectations and such conversation around that, society, and like, yeah, Anna cheated and whatever, but like the way she was shunned and whatnot, like Anna's not a likable person, but her situation you can kind of understand because I think her husband's like significantly older than her. Like, it was just kind of expected, and it wasn't like a love match, and then she does fall in love, and so you can kind of understand, but she never takes responsibility for herself. And what happens to her in the end, like, I would never wish that on anybody, but honestly, with her, I was like, whatever. Like, like, I had no empathy there because she's just such a hateful person. And like I said, you can understand her situation, but she was just not likable. So, like, if it would have been a different character, like, you can maybe understand. Like, if it maybe been Kitty in that situation, but she just never takes responsibility for herself. Like, she's constantly, like, thinking her new guy doesn't love her, and, like, he's out running around, he wants other women, and, like, oh, she's just so hateful, and the men are so hateful. The only ones I liked was Levin and Kitty, and then created unnecessary drama there. Like I said, I don't even understand why Anna Karenina was the title character when she really felt like a side character. It really follows more Levin. So I'm glad I did read it, but it was very frustrating, like the drama and the adultery and such. Like, I'm like, you gotta be kidding me. I did not know that's what I was signing up for when I went into that book. So, but I did get it read, so I'm very happy about that. Maggie Gyllenhaal was the narrator for the edition I listened to. Um, and at first it took me a little while to get used to her, and you can really tell, like, her voice would get tired, and then it would be a new chapter, and you could tell, like, obviously she had stopped and taken a break, and she would be refreshed. And, like, it sounded like two different people initially, and I don't know if it just smoothed out over the book, like, she kind of got used to the reading, or if I just got used to that, and it didn't bother me so much, but I did really enjoy having her as a narrator. But I spent, like, several days, like I think almost a week, listening to that book, so it was a lot. Anyway, the next one is I got it for my character. I had Owl, which is to read a memoir, biography, or any type of nonfiction. And so for this one, I went with one of my other Octopus books, and I went with The Soul of an Octopus by Montgomery. This is the last of the 3 stars. And this one, it was more the writing style that dropped it down for me. The author relied on a lot of quotes, which nonfiction, yeah, they reference, where they're getting their information from and such. But she would quote people and do quotes that had nothing to do with Octopus. It just, it would remind her of something, something would remind her of something, and then she'd pull out the quote. And she really relied on that heavily, especially in the beginning. It kind of did smooth out a little bit. So there was partly that. Also, she would just go off on tangents, which that is one thing, like, that I struggle with. Like, that's why I don't like Stephen King's writing, is the just going off on tangents, like, and then you're like, by the time they loop back to what they were originally talking about, you've already kind of forgotten what they were talking about. This author does that as well. And so that was hard for me. The part where she focused on her interactions with the octopus, I actually enjoyed. I will say it got repetitive as far as, like, in the aquarium part, because, like, yeah, she has different octopus, and so you get different personalities and such, but basically it was very repetitive as far as, her and some other volunteers would stick their arm in, and the octopus would sucker them and taste them, and, like, sometimes they would splash the people. Like, that got repetitive. But I enjoyed, learning different facts about the octopus that I did not know. I did enjoy, like, the different personalities you see from the different octopus, and I liked how, you had the octopus in the aquarium, but then she went out and learned how to scuba dive and went and saw a wild octopus as well. And so, yeah, and the other 2 books that I'm going to be talking about, both in their acknowledgement reference this book, so they clearly used that to learn more facts and whatnot. But yeah, it's more the writing style, like that, going off on tangents and overly quoting instead of using her own words. And like I said, that was more in the beginning. It does smooth out. But the tangents, like, she goes off on tangents. I'm like, what? Like, what are you even talking about? So, but I enjoyed learning about octopuses. So there's that one. Then we also had 6 4-star reads. One at the bottom of the 4 stars. This was also a Goodreads giveaway. This was a rollover. Was gonna try to read it in May, and I didn't get to it. This is the second book in a series, so I did read the first book as well, but it's a little bit higher as far as rating. So this book is Plus Size Player. This is by Danielle Allen. It only says 2 out of 2 on Goodreads, but I'm pretty positive there is going to be a third one because there is 3 friends. And I'm really looking forward to that third one because I'm really intrigued by that friend in particular. But basically in this one you have Nina, and she's a player. Like, she has a different guy for different things. She has a smart one, so when she wants, to go like to a museum date and like, or like a talk or whatever, like she has the smart one for that. She has the funny one, she has the romantic one. And so she never pigeonholes herself. Like, she does not want a serious relationship because she does not think, and the whole thing is like, she doesn't not believe in love. Her parents have a very solid relationship, but she sees how solid her parents' relationship, and she's like, if somebody can't meet all my needs and be everything I want in a person, like, I'm not gonna settle. So I haven't found a man that can do all that, so I'm just gonna date. Like, I have different men for my different needs, and that's fine. Well, she's dating the fun one. And she finds herself more and more drawn to just spending time with him and not her other dates that she has lined up. Um, and so he really likes her too. And so she actually ends up taking a risk. Well, finds out like she gets this career opportunity because she is a influencer, a fashion influencer, and she gets this career opportunity. And was like, yes, sign me up. Turns out he's the CEO, and there is a strict, like, no fraternization clause in the contract. And he's the CEO also, and like, he's worked very, very hard for this business. Like, it's a fashion business, and designing clothes, and they're having like their first fashion week and everything like that. And like, so he's like, we can't do this. And so that's the conflict. I did like how that was set out. Like, the conflict comes up early on, and they have to kind of figure out where they're at and the situation there. I actually like the format of that because normally the conflict is the third act, conflict or whatever. Or in this case, it was earlier on. So I really, really enjoyed that. Nina, just as a character, I'm not into fashion. Like, I'm very one person. Like, not. I didn't even like dating before I met my husband. Let alone date multiple people. Like, she's just really not somebody I would gravitate to in real life. Um, but I did like I said, the format where the conflict came on earlier on and they came up. But also at the same time, like, these are some, like, if you want spice, this has it. Like, they cannot keep it even when it's in inappropriate situations. Like, there they are. Um, so yeah, overall I had a good time with it. It just wasn't quite my favorite characters or anything like that. And like the fashion thing, like, it was like not quite my thing. But I had a really good time with it. I am looking forward to the third book. So there's that. Then our next 4-star is Elixir by Hilary Duff. This is the first book in that trilogy. This, like I said, it is not well written. Like, if you're interested in reading this, do not go in thinking you're gonna have amazing writing. It is very YA, very, like, not well developed. Like, it's like she was 20 when she wrote this, but like a non-writer just writing a story. But I had a good time with it anyway. And I wish it had been better developed because I probably would have enjoyed it even more. But basically, you have Clea, and she's the daughter of a senator, I want to say. And her dad's like a doctor. But her dad's been fascinated with like mythology and lore and such, and he's been fascinated by this thing called the Elixir of Life. And he does like outreach programs and such. So he ends up going down to Brazil and just disappears. And nobody knows what happens to him. He ends up presumed dead, even though they don't really know. And so she is on vacation with her best friend in Paris. And she takes photographs, which I really like that concept. And in her photograph, she's finding, like, when she's developing it, so she's seeing this man in the background of all the different photographs. And she's like, who is this man? Like, why is he stalking us? Like, what's happening? It just doesn't seem possible. And then I think she ends up going and looking later on, like, on earlier photos, and can see him. And, like, she ends up taking pictures of her room, and he's, like, in the closet, but he's not there, so she can't figure it out. So she's trying to figure it out. And so basically you have her, and this man ends up being her soulmate. Like, she starts having dreams about him, but she's different people in the dreams. Like, she's her, but she's different people, different times. And so there's kind of this reincarnation element. You have the elixir of life, which gives her immortality, and there's that element, and that ties into, like, her dreams and, like, the past lives that they've lived together, and the fact that they're soulmates and such. And then she has this really good friend, Ben, as well. Like, Raina's the one she was off on vacation. She's her girlfriend. And then you have Ben, who was hired to basically, like, go with her on photo shoots and such. And so he plays a part in the story as well, like, in the past lives and whatnot, and what's going on. And so basically in this first one, she's just trying to figure out who this guy is, and then there's, like, these other people who are after him and such. And so they're just trying to unravel the mystery of, well, first this guy, and then the elixir and what's going on there. So it is kind of like there's action-packed scenes because you have these guys that are after him and such. It is very insta-love as far as her and the other character is Sage. Very, very insta-love. And that's where I think if it had been better developed, it would have worked, because even though it's insta-love, like, it makes sense. Like, it's explained because they're soulmates and they've had these past lives together, and so that kind of recognition is there, but it's not developed enough. So it's it feels very insta-love in the worst way, even though it does make sense, if that makes sense. So, like, there's an explanation for the insta love, but it wasn't very well developed. But I had fun with this. I had a good time. I like the premise of it. I found it very, very interesting. I'm, like, over halfway of the second book. It's a little bit different. Different things are going on. You still have that focus on the elixir, and the soulmate aspect. But yeah, I'm having a great time with this, even though it's not well written. Like I said, I don't necessarily need it to be well written if I like the story and such. So there's also a lot of angst and whatnot. But yeah, I enjoyed this one. So there is that. Um, so yeah, there's that. And that one I did use for Kim's game as well. It was, we had to play higher or lower. So a book I was super excited about, and then a book with low ratings. And this was the lowest rated book that I had on my TBR. And obviously I lost, so that one worked for the game. The next one was also for Kim's game. So this was extra, and it had to be between 500 and 599 pages. And this one is 562. And I read the third book in the Souls trilogy. This is Soul of a Witch by Harley Laroux. And this was probably, in a way, my favorite of the series, because the other two felt very similar. Like, yes, you were following different people, but kind of the plot points were the same, and you already knew what happened because of the other book. Where in this case, you have Everly and Callum. And Everly, why she's, like, at the very beginning of the other two books, like, and, like, she has moments where she pops up in them. Like, for the most part, like, you don't know what they're doing, you know, in the case of the other two books. Like, they're kind of separate, and so that part felt fresh. I really like Everly as a character. She is kind of more of a soft girl, and you see throughout the book, like, and Callum really built her up, and she really comes into her power, because she's a witch, but she doesn't think she's very powerful or anything like that. I love the house. There's a house that she goes to, and I love that element. I loved her grandmother. And yeah, I just had a good time. The ending wasn't necessarily as satisfying for me. I really liked Callum. He's like an archdemon. Um, and you kind of get a little bit of back history on him and such. I didn't love, like, you do have Lucifer. That part was just kind of a little weird. But I liked, like, the nature element to them as well. I love the house. And yeah, I really enjoyed this overall. Like I said, I do think it was my favorite. And it felt fresher than the other two because the other two felt just too similar. I didn't like the characters in the first one. The characters in the second one were fine, but like the plot points, like I said, they were just too similar to the other one, where this one was a little bit fresher and such. But the ending wasn't as satisfying as it could have been. There is still like plot holes that I was hoping might be explained in this one, but never were. Like the differences in the sacrifices and whatnot, and like why between the first sacrifice and the the first failed sacrifice and then the initial start of the story with that sacrifice, why there was such a gap between that, like that never gets really explained. um but overall, I really enjoyed the story. So basically, I didn't even explain what it was about, but basically you have this cult, and many years ago there was like a cave-in the mine, and only three people survived, and they made a deal with the deep one. And so now it's come time to pay for that deal, with the blood of the descendants of each of the people who survived. And so this cult is trying to sacrifice, and when the third sacrifice happens, the deep one will be able to rise. um, and so in the first one, like, she's just trying to survive and not get sacrificed, and she makes a deal with her demon, and of course it's a dark romance, so you have that. The second one was the failed sacrifice, so she's out for revenge, and then in this case you have Everly, who's the witch, and she's just trying to shut down the evil once and for all, as is Callum, because there was wars between the gods and the demons. And so he's out to get the gods, basically. So yeah, I had a great time with this series. Like I said, that third one was my favorite. Then let's see here, we have the first book in the series, and this one I did read digitally. I enjoyed it so much I wanted to get a physical copy, and that's Curvy Girl Summer, again by Danielle Allen. And this one you have Elia, um, and she's just trying to find. She hoped to have a relationship by her 30th birthday. She has a lot of pressure from her family. Um, Mainly like her uncle is very concerned. Or no, was it her uncle? I think it was her uncle, is very concerned about her. And she lost her sister. And her sister was already married. Her sister was a little bit older than her and was already married, had a baby on the way and whatnot. Ended up passing away. And so she's kind of always had this, like, at 30, I need to have my life figured out. Because that's how my sister had to figure out. She's got a lot of pressure. Her family wants her to find somebody. Her uncle's like, you need to lose weight. You're never going to find a man being that heavy, and yada yada. And so her whole goal is, so she's going on, it's called Tenderfish or whatever. And she's going on this dating app trying to find a guy. And she ends up holding her dates at this bar where this bartender, and they have really great banter. But he's like, you need to know, like, you need to stop finding these ridiculous guys. Like, you need a good guy. Like, what are you doing? But he has some trauma and he doesn't want to be in a relationship. They have really good banter. They're getting friendly. And he's trying to help her, find a guy. And I really enjoyed it overall. The thing with this one is the plus size rep, and both of them, this one was worse. Like, every interaction she had was basically negative as far as her weight. And that, to me, is not realistic. Like, not every interaction you're going to have is going to be about your weight and be negative. And so that kind of it was a little bit overkill. Like, yes, that does happen, but in this case, it was a little bit overkill. Kind of the conflict, like, she really doubles down, like, and doesn't really believe. Like, there were some parts of the conflict that made sense in the way they talked it out and everything, but in the end, like, she doubles down, and just doesn't believe that he could love her or whatever. And it's just like, come on, even when he's trying to communicate, she's just doubling down and not listening. And so that kind of got like, come on, like, come on. But like the uncle and the way he was like, well, I'm just concerned for your health. Like, that's why, like, I'm just concerned for you. I love you. And that's why I'm talking to you about your weight and whatever. It's like, you just need to butt out, uncle. Like, if you really loved me, like, you would stop. And so, yeah, there was a lot I really enjoyed about this. And overall, I loved it. Obviously, I bought a physical copy because I enjoyed it so much. But there's just a few things that didn't quite work. And that's what dropped it down for me. So, there is that one. Then we have, let's see here. Maybe if I can get it. This one was for my game and also the Octopus vlog. And this one was Aristocats, and it was a cat pick, which we loved. So this one was The Mountain in the Sea by Ray Nayler. This is kind of like a sci-fi thriller type book. So basically in this one we're following 3 different main people, and then you get a couple other point of views thrown in. But our one, she's a doctor, and she goes to this island. She gets hired, and goes to this island where there's only an android and a security person, and then like some android monks as well. And she's hired to observe these octopus and try to figure out like their intelligence and such. And they clearly have a language, and so they're trying to figure that out. And whatnot. And that island is owned by Dynama, which is like a technology company, and they created this android. But he's an android, and he has like, he's kind of above, like, most androids, like an AI, like, it has a stopping point, or they call it the edge, where you're gonna prove that they're not a human, and in this case, this android, like, he made it past that point, and so he can kind of problem solve and think, like, he's not stuck to what he was programmed to do. Or they, it's not a he, sorry, they aren't stuck at that. So that was really interesting. Then you're following Iko, who is a slave on this ship, this fishing ship that is piloted by AI, but there's also guards keeping them on it. That one was really interesting. That viewpoint was really interesting. And then you have Rustum, I want to say is his name, and he is a hacker. And he's hired to hack into something that you don't know. You do learn later on. And you're not sure who he's hired by. And the other viewpoints are the same person, I think, who was talking to Rustum, because they have this, it's called the ab glands, and it just basically obscures their face. And the other viewpoints, that mysterious person is interviewing these other people. And so it's really, really interesting. And you have a lot of conversation about AI, and intelligence and consciousness and such. And so it really was interesting. The reason it didn't get 5 stars for me is, first, it was really hard to get into. I almost DNF'd it because you got a lot of different lingo. You have initialisms and acronyms that were kind of confusing and weren't really explained. The author just kind of plunks you down, doesn't introduce characters. You're just plunked into the story and kind of have to figure it out as you go. It's a very much trust the process kind of book. And then the ending wasn't very satisfying. Something happens, but you don't really get answers as far as the octopuses go, and you don't really get answers as far as like the future of AI and what's going to happen there, and like the slave ships and whatnot. Like, you don't get a lot of answers. Like, something happens, yes, and you can kind of infer certain things because of what happens, but you just don't get a lot of answers. So, and some of the names, like the security guard, her name was Mongolian, and I mentioned this in the my vlog, but I don't know that I was all that articulate. I'm not very articulate right now at all either. But name, I couldn't pronounce it. It was Altantsetseg. I looked it up how to pronounce it. It's Mongolian, and it's like, I love that you're using names from different cultures and such, but at the same time, like, reading needs to be accessible. So if you're gonna do that, you need to explain how it's pronounced. Like, give me some context. So, like, especially me, I'm a reader. I read every word and I hear it in my head. So even after looking it up, like, it wasn't accessible, and so it's like, you could have gone with a Mongolian name that was a little easier, or give me a pronunciation, or say the name and then, you know, use a nickname or something. Like, it's a double-sided sword, because I love the inclusivity of the culture, um and that's part of a culture. It's a name from the culture, the Mongolian culture, so I love that, but it wasn't very accessible, and that made it really hard for me to read. And so, yeah, that was part that made it hard to get into as well, because also the main doctor, who's like the founder of Dianima, her name was like an Icelandic name, which was a little bit complicated. So, like, yes, include cultures and other names, but, like, help us out at the same time. Like, you know, give us pronunciation, give us background. Um, like, so that way I can just flip to it, because, yeah, I looked it up, but it was a hard name and I struggled with it. So anyway, really enjoyed this though. Had a great time with that one. Then the last one was a rollover from May. Um, this one, I had pulled a black disc, which means I needed 200 yard prompts. But with that, if I can have one book that fits both prompts, I can use it. So I had Velocity of Atlantis, and it was a mystery element, and then I had Snow White, which was number 7 rep. And so for that one, I had gone with The 7.5 Deaths of Evelyn Hardcastle by Stuart Turton. I did also use this, I think, for Kim's game. Let's see. It was just a free pick. I was originally going to use it for her game in May, but I didn't finish it in time. And so I was already part way through, so I just used it as a free pick. Because for Kim's game, as long as you finish the book in that time period, it can count. And so, yeah, I read this one. And this was also a priority read as well. And overall, I had a really good time with this. Thinking on it now, like, I'm like, what didn't I like that made it more of a 4-star than a 5-star? But basically, you're following Aiden, and each day he's waking up in a different guest body, and they're guests at this estate where they're celebrating, I think, Evelyn's birthday. But she dies, and so he has to figure out who killed her, by the end, the 8th day, is essentially what he has to do. And there's like this mysterious figure who's like kind of guiding him a little bit, and he's trying to figure out. And I really like this one because there is a time loop within the time loop, which was really cool. There's also, I can't say it without giving spoilers, but there is kind of this concept of why Aiden's there. So there's kind of a separate mystery of why he's in this time loop himself, which was really interesting, and I really like that. And kind of the role he's, it's the plague doctor is what he calls him, is kind of the guy that's guiding him a little bit, because he wears a plague mask. And it was really interesting. I like the way it was formatted and done. I will say though, I wish, well, it wouldn't have worked the same though, but it was kind of hard for me to get into. I think that's why it was a 4-star. It was just kind of hard to get into because Aiden has no memories. Like, he doesn't know who he is, himself, and then he's waking up in these bodies that he has no clue about. And so his only memories are from day 1 onward. So yeah, he has memories of being in somebody else's body, and that's how he can kind of piece things together a little bit. And so, like, he gets to know some of his future hosts because he sees them and interacts with them throughout the day. And so he kind of is able to piece things together. But, like, initially, he has no clue what's going on. He doesn't know who he is. He doesn't know this body he's in. Like, and so it was really interesting. I liked the setting. Like, you have this isolated manor. And there's like some scenes in the woods and such, which were really interesting. I like the double mystery. I like the double time loop. Like, there's a lot of this I loved, but it was kind of hard to get into because you're jumping between people. I did not think it was that repetitive. I think somebody mentioned to me that because it's a time loop, it does get a little bit repetitive, but to me, I think the author did a good job at keeping it not repetitive because you're following the different people and they are doing different things on the different days that he's in. And I mean, it's the same day over and over, but like for him it's like, you know, day 1, 2. It's a little bit complex, a little bit convoluted, but like, yes, it's the same day over and over, but each day is like a new day for him, up to that 8th day. And so yeah, it was really, really interesting, but it was kind of hard to connect, especially Aiden not knowing himself, and you have all these different characters that you don't really know. It was a little bit hard to connect and a little bit slower because of that, but it was really interesting, very unique, and I had a great time with this. So there's that one. Then we had 2 5-stars this month. The first one was on my priority list. It was also I got Bookworm It's Your Birthday, and this was published, I think, September 19th, it said online, of 2023, and my birthday is in September. It was my family book club pick, and that is Bright Young Women by Jessica Knoll. I love this. You're jumping between timelines and 2 different POVs. Well, 3 timelines, 2 different POVs. And so you have our one character, let's see if I can remember, Pamela, and it's initially her, and you have her like present day timeline, her timeline in the past when she was at the sorority and this killer struck, and then you have Ruth, who was a victim of this killer. And you also have Tina, who is throughout the timelines. So basically, you're following. One thing I loved about this is it never names the killer. He's just the defendant. And he's a serial killer, and it's based on Ted Bundy, and the way he was sensationalized and sexualized and everything like that. And so you're following the different timelines. Pamela's the head of a sorority chapter. And so she's a witness. Like, she's not a direct victim, but she is a witness. She does see the killer, and it's kind of her testimony that ends up finding him and putting him away. And then you have Ruth as a victim, and then, like I said, Tina ties everything together. And then you have, like, in the future, which also ties back to Ruth. So that was really interesting how the author connected everything. And yeah, I just had a really, really great time. I loved how it was more, you know, the victim and the witness and not the defendant. Like, he was never named, and I really like that because we do tend to sensationalize the killers and never even know the victims' names. So I really enjoyed how the author did that. I liked going back and forth, and the way that you kind of have a talk about how women are often just presented hysterical and not taken seriously. I really enjoyed that. We really see that with Pamela, and then Ruth. There is LGBTQIA plus rep in here, and specifically with Ruth and the way things are handled there. Like, it's very well done, I think. My mom, okay, it was a family book club, and she didn't like the ending. I found it interesting because you know Ruth dies. Like, you know she's a victim of the killer. And I found that interesting because it's told from first person. So she's telling her story. And yeah, at the end you don't get like the full closure, which I think the author could have still done that. But my mom wasn't happy with that part, but I enjoyed the whole thing. And there's like forensic pathology type stuff that comes in play at the end, which I found interesting. And so yeah, I had a great time. I really, really love this one. So, but my top book of the month, and this ended up being for top 3 too, my top book. But my number 1 is Remarkably Bright Creatures by Shelby Van Pelt. This was an extra for my Octopus vlog. This was the whole reason I did that vlog, because I recently hauled this. I found it at a thrift store. I've been wanting to get this for a very long time, and read it for a very long time. So when I found it at a thrift store, I was beyond excited and couldn't wait to read it. So I was like, June's a great month, and I had the other Octopus books. So I was like, let's do a vlog. I love this. I didn't realize going in, Tova, our main character, is 70 years old, and Marcellus, the octopus, is kind of at the end of his life as well. I loved Marcellus's viewpoint, because it's like, let me read how it is. It's like day, whatever of my captivity. Yeah, so day 1,299 of my captivity. And it's just kind of funny, and like he knows he's at the end of his life, so he's like, my sentence will soon be over, like, and he's excited for it, and it's just kind of funny. And Tova works as a cleaning woman at the aquarium after hours. And she ends up kind of striking up a conversation, like starts talking to Marcellus. And then there's another viewpoint that ties in, and I like how that ties in. But basically, you have a mystery element. So it's literary, because Tova's dealing with grief. And so you have conversations around that, about old age and what it means when you get older, like, and you don't really have anybody to take care of you. Like, are you a burden on your friends? How you can still be useful and such and productive even though you're older. Like, there's a lot of conversation in here that to be had about grief and age and such. But there's also a mystery element. So Tova, 30 years ago, lost her son. He was 18. And the authorities think he committed suicide. She doesn't think that. So there's kind of a mystery about what happened to her son. Um, and then she recently lost her husband, and so she's just all alone. Like, it's just her. And so yeah, I didn't realize that. I knew she was an older woman, but I didn't realize she was 70, and that she had lost her son 30 years ago. And I love that aspect. And the way Marcellus is helping solve this mystery, like, I liked how it was done, because even though, like, obviously you're getting his viewpoint, there's a little bit of magical realism there. Like, it was still realistic in a sense, because it wasn't just like magic, like, oh, like he wrote a message to her. He had to find out ways, because he couldn't communicate, to try to guide her to certain things, when he can't communicate and he is older and such. So I really liked how that was done. And I liked the mystery portion. Like, yes, you get answers, and yes, it gets wrapped up, but it's not necessarily in a perfect little bow, Like, it's not tied up in a perfect little bow. Like, there's still a little bit of ambiguity there and whatnot, but she has an idea of what happened to her son by the end. I really liked how that was done. And like I said, I did like that other viewpoint and how it tied into everything. I really enjoyed that. I can't tell you because it would spoil it, but I love this. And it was my top book of the month, both, star rating and in the top 3. The top 3, it was my top book. I liked the octopus POV. Marcellus was funny. Like, it was very humorous reading his viewpoint and about his captivity, and he kind of has this dry sense of humor. Like, I really enjoyed his point of view. I like the older protagonist. I love the themes of grief, age, family, and the mystery element. I thought that was a lot of fun. There was kind of two, they tied together, but I really liked that mystery element. My second book was actually The 7.5 Deaths of Evelyn Hardcastle by Stuart Turton. Again, the loop within the loop. I just found that really interesting. I really like that aspect. I like the double mystery. Like, I like, you're trying to figure out what's going on with Evelyn Hardcastle, but you're also trying to figure out Aiden's story as well. I really enjoyed that. And I like the formatting and the setting. Like, I found it really unique and interesting. So, I'm not necessarily setting like isolated settings, manor house, whatever, but the formatting where he's in different host body and he doesn't really remember, like, I found that really interesting. My third spot for my top 3 actually goes to Ninja the Shadow Warrior. That one just really stuck out to me. I found myself thinking about it like a couple times when we're like just out and about. It's popped into my mind. And so I really like kind of the uniqueness of the topic. Like, I don't read about ninjas. Like, not even fake ninjas, like in fictional context. Like, I don't read about ninjas. I liked the history versus culture element. That was my favorite part of the book, and I really enjoyed that. And then also you kind of have the conversation of ninja versus samurai. And since I did have some background on the samurai from reading Shogun by James Clavell, I really liked kind of getting that comparison because I knew certain things because I had read that book. And so I liked the duality between those two. So that was my month. I would love to know if you've read any of these books, if you're interested in reading any of these books now that I've talked about them, maybe what your favorite book of the month was. If you just want to comment and let me know you were here and you're helping to support the channel by commenting, you can always leave a rabbit, maybe an octopus, or any other type of animal you would like to down in the comments below. I'm going to go ahead and leave you guys here. Happy reading, everyone. Bye.